Yes, it looks like we have a quorum.
All right, wonderful. All right, well, let's call this meeting to order. And we will start with our roll call of commission members. Vice Chair, Commissioner Vice Chair Gail Jackson.
I do see Ms. Jackson in.
Okay, wonderful. Commissioner Jose Alvarado.
Present.
Commissioner Curtis present.
Commissioner Carol Curtis, are you muted?
Commissioner Curtis present.
Wonderful, thank you. Commissioner Cal McCloy.
Present.
Thank you. And Commissioner David Steiner.
I am here, present.
Wonderful, thank you. City staff, Councilwoman Regina Salas.
Present.
Economic Vitality Director Heidi Hansen.
Ms. Hanson will not be in today. She is out of town.
Okay. Airport Director Barney Helmick.
Present.
Airport Programs Manager Brian Gall.
Present.
Airport Communications Manager Claire Harper.
Present.
All right. And ARFF Operations Manager Tim Skinner.
Present.
And Recording Secretary Missiela Sanner.
Present.
Wonderful, thank you. Now we'll move on to the public comment, participation input, and that is preliminary general business. Items presented during the public participation input portion of the agenda cannot be acted upon by the commission. Individual members of the commissions may ask questions of the public, but are prohibited by the open meeting law from discussion or considering the item among themselves until the item has officially been placed on the agenda. Is there any public comment at this time? All right, hearing none, let's move on to announcements. Are there any announcements, reconsiderations, changes to the agenda, and other preliminary announcements? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to the approval of the minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, Council McCloy.
Thank you, sir. Do I hear a second? Do I hear a second to approve the minutes?
Second, Commissioner Curtis.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Unmute and please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. And now we will move to the City Council updates. Councilwoman Regina Salas.
The council is officially on a summer break. We had our last special session held last week, and so we're on a summer break, and the next regular council meeting is on August 24th. Before going on a break, council approved the fiscal year 2022-2023 city budget at $540.8 million, 23% comprise the general fund, which is at 121.5 million. Special revenue fund is at 152.8 million, which is 20%. Debt service funds is 17.5 million, which is 3%. Capital project funds is 49.1 million at 9%. And enterprise fund is 199.9 million at 37%. So of course, the budget was developed since the beginning of the year. It's priority-based budgeting, focus on key community priorities and infrastructure needs. Also, so it's also important to know that the budget increased by 152.1 million, that's 39% compared to the previous year. But these are carryover capital. Just like our all of our capital improvements project, like the Lone Tree Overpass and Rio de Flag project. So we just carried the capital carried over the capital improvement projects funds to this new fiscal year. Also, council approved to send to the voters for approval for a general obligations bond, 20 million for housing and 55 million for stormwater and wastewater and 2 million for fire. So water, wastewater, and fire will be with one question, and the housing will be another question that will be placed on the ballot for the November 8th elections. So the recommendation includes for the fire, public safety infrastructure, wildfire engines, and for stormwater and wastewater infrastructure projects includes spruce wash, wildcat capacity, wastewater energy efficiency, and wastewater treatment upgrades. Yeah, and for housing, which is at 20 million, we have redevelopment of city-owned housing for rental, repurposing existing building into rental, and incentivizing rental housing and home buyers assistance. So that's at 20 million. Yeah, so even with the council break, I will just take a week off, but then back to work. Of course, I'm here with the Airport Commission meeting online, but here in Scottsdale, also attending the Governance Conference on Tourism on behalf with our Tourism Commission and our Discover Flagstaff teams. And then at the end of the month, I am representing the region in the Rural Transportation Advocacy Council board meeting, of which I serve as the new vice chair. And a lot of cool stuff happening this summer. And I'm here for any questions. And of course, as always, my lines are open for communication, email, text, call. Just give me a holler if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Salas. Are there any questions for Councilwoman Salas at this time? All right, thank you again. And moving on now to item number 3, public safety awareness. And I believe we have Officer Charles Hernandez here.
Yeah, I'm Charles Hernandez. I'm coming to you from the field. I'm actually at a incident command post for flooding. So,
Oh, okay.
Preparing us for flood over here on the east side.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you, sir.
I was invited by Barney and Tim to kind of give you an overview of how we're preparing or what our response would be to a incident that we've been seeing across the country, such as an active shooter or something where it puts a lot of people in danger. So recently, our staffing has allowed us to reallocate an officer back to the airport full time. And what that does is give us an immediate presence rather than rotating through overtime officers. So that's a win for us and the safety of the airport if an event does occur. Also, what we've been doing is throughout the city, and private and public entities have been requesting active shooter trainings for their businesses, the hospitals, schools, and things like that, just so they can prepare for when an event occurs. How we train is it's not if, it's going to be when it occurs, what we are going to do, what our response is going to do, and kind of give some information to those entities and partners of what we expect them to do or what they should be doing to prepare for that event. Specific to the airport, I think, like I said, having that officer immediately available on the premises will hopefully address the threat if one does occur, which means that when we train and how we train with our quarterly training, as the officers are trained to immediately address the threat, not stand by and wait for other personnel or anything like that. They're to go and engage the person who is creating the hazard or the threat and attempt to stop it by any means necessary. I think we just did a recent review of our response times, and I would say we're well under 5 minutes response time to everywhere an emergency occurs within the city. And that's looking at dispatch data when a call for service does come in. So the officer will immediately go to the threat, and we'll have other officers and partner agencies in the area respond to that location as well to deal with the threat. Our issue that we would run into is identification of the threat, because people typically will try and run or and then we've seen through historical practices with the schools, the actual shooter has been able to elude capture or law enforcement by becoming one of the people leaving or fleeing from the area, and kind of gets by us that way. But so that's where we're going to try and work with airport personnel and other entities that occupy that premises to identify protocols that they can do for best practices should an event occur, and then also provide our response to that location so they're aware of what to expect when we do arrive, so they're not afraid and they know that we're there to help them. Because most times people will go to an event like this, may not have a uniform on. It may just be a detective with a vest, and it may not say police. So it's good to put that information out to you all and your partners that work at the airport, so they know that help's going to be there. And I've been working with Barney and Tim to talk about you guys developing protocols for your staff on that property, so you can prepare as well. Because we prepare, like I said, quarterly. We have a big school scenario-based training coming up later this fall to try and test our partnerships with the fire, sheriff, and NAU. So we're routinely and regularly training. And I was supposed to have Officer Condon here, who's an instructor for active shooter responses. He's been training the city personnel. I think Claire has gone through that class at the city hall. So he's more than willing and able to come into any entity that requests instruction on the process or protocols that we should be employing should an event like this occur. And he's willing to also come to the airport and do a site threat assessment, maybe some target hardening evaluations, just to help prepare should an event occur at the airport. So with that, I mean, if you need more information, I'm available for questions, but for the most part, I just wanted to assure the commission that should an event occur at the airport, we are prepared and we are constantly preparing for not only an event at the airport, but anywhere throughout the city.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Officer Hernandez, or Sergeant Hernandez. I absolutely appreciate you taking the time to address the Airport Commission. You've answered all of my questions. Do any of the commissioners have questions for Sergeant Hernandez? All right, hearing none. Thank you again, and we'll let you get back to your duties, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, wonderful. Moving on to item number 4, staff reports, and I believe that is Claire Harper. We will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I do want to note that unfortunately we do not have our employment numbers for this past month. Our contact at United is on leave. So once we have those numbers, we'll certainly share them in our presentation next month. So for our total operations in June, you can see we were right at that 3,305, which is down about 200 from May. And we can, some of that is we had quite a few windy days in June, as well as those gas prices that were still rising in June. And then for fuel sales, you can see that we were right at about 106,000, which is down from May as well as down from last June. So we're hoping to see those numbers rise up a little bit for July as those fuel prices do go down. And any questions on that we can certainly answer.
No questions? All right.
I guess I'm curious, do you have an opinion on what is the cause of the lower fuel pricing, the sales?
I think some of that I'll certainly let Barney chime in, but I think we are seeing that due to the high cost of fuel, people may not be using as much. Barney, what do you think?
Well, I see that Orville's going to be on here later. I'll let him give a better explanation, but I do think we're seeing an economic downturn here, and that's impacting a lot of the flying that we're seeing.
Oh, okay, thanks.
All right, any more questions from the commissioners? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much, Claire. Moving on to the fixed base operator report, Wiseman Aviation. Orville.
Thank you. I hate it when I say this, but I just want to make sure before I start talking, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I was sitting here writing some notes, and I guess the best way to put this is no news is good news. I mean, Barney and I have emailed back and forth the last few months about everything, but in regards to the question about fuel cells, this time last year, I think it was we had 3 daily Denver flights and 3 daily Dallas flights. Right now we have 1 Denver flight, which as we all know is going away in October, and 2 Dallas flights. When those planes are fairly well loaded, which they were, for our planning purposes, each of those outer flights, not to Phoenix because they can tanker, are worth about 500 gallons. So, you know, if you take 365 times 500, it's what? It's 182,000 gallons each time one of those flights goes away on an annual basis. We didn't have the meeting last month because I was going to kind of comment then, but I distinctly remember June of 2008, and I was on various boards then, and everybody was feeling all happy and, you know, about what was going on, and I felt like Chicken Little, the sky was falling out here at the airport. And, you know, my industry precedes a recession, it lags in a recovery. And I'm not going to get all political or partisan or whatever, but we're clearly in a depression as far as, or I should say, some kind of economic downturn in terms of what's going on out here. And it's not just in, you know, any one sector. Yeah, the fuel prices have been outrageous. In fact, I had to change the way I mark up my fuel. I'm operating percentage-wise off the lowest margin I think I've ever operated off of in 23 plus years. Because if I held the margins I had, you know, a year, 2 years ago, I'd be way over $10 a gallon. And so a lot of us in the area, to be totally honest, are kind of eating it in terms of what we used to maintain. And, you know, you can say, well, you're still making more per gallon. Yeah, but, you know, American Express, Visa, all our other overhead isn't going, is that nobody decreased their margins on that. So it is what it is. I mean, my 20-year average here was 585,000 gallons. And then when the, you know, the Denver flight came in and Dallas, and then American followed with the Dallas flight, you know, we jumped up and we jumped up again. And, you know, if I was just be totally candid, I think last year is probably going to be the best year we see in a long, for the past as well as the next few years to come. My fuel supplier sent out a communique about 3-4 weeks ago that there's going to be supply issues for at least 2 years, and they're pretty good at what they do, one of the largest suppliers in the country. So I don't like that news, but I have to take that news for what it's worth. So, you know, I've been here for over 2 decades. I don't have a lot of debt. I've got, you know, capital in the bank. We'll endure this just fine. But, you know, fuel is a variable cost with sales. All my other overhead isn't, like labor, which is my second highest expense in the company. And, you know, we've got to take a serious look at that. I had a meeting earlier this week about, you know, we got to be proactive as this comes along. So I wish I had something great to say about that, but I don't. It is what it is. We'll make it through this, but, you know, the glory days are over for now anyway. At least as far as is what I can see. You know, let's see. Good news. Flagstaff Symphony wants to have an event in my hangar, which is going to be pretty neat. And I'm going to meet with them probably next week out here. You know, I don't have a whole lot else to talk about, you know, in terms of cutting back. I opted not to renew my Gallup lease and did not bid that. And we move out the end of this month because honestly, that location was a lot of overhead relative to revenue, just like we did in Cottonwood. And so, you know, we're just leaning up and going to focus on, you know, the things that we need to focus on. And if anybody's got any questions, go ahead.
Thank you, Orville. I'm sure that we are one of many regional airports that are feeling that same pinch. So we appreciate your candor and
well, and you know, in response to that, and I don't know if Barney is going to address it, but the United thing's very frustrated because we had a 90% load factor, which is, you know, I'm not an expert on the airlines. That's more over on the other side of the airport here, but it's hard to understand why they did that, you know, from our perspective. And you're right. I mean, this is not unique to Flagstaff. I mean, this is happening everywhere. You know, you've heard about how American had one of the regionals park 50 airplanes because of the pilot shortage. There's just a lot of things contributing to this right now.
Right, absolutely. And I think that that is on the agenda. I think that's the 5th item that Barney will speak on. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts everywhere. So Are there any questions for Orville before we move on to the new topic? All right, hearing none, thank you, Orville, for your fixed base operator report. Always appreciated. Thank you. Moving on to our information items, and we will start with the CARES Act grant update. Brian Gall, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Chair Caldwell. Yeah, so it's been a little bit of a little while since we talked about this last, and we do have some updates on the CARES grant projects that are completed or pending or upcoming here. So just a reminder of the couple that we completed last fall or this spring. That was the Westplex Hangar and Shade Repairs Phase 1 project and the Airfield Maintenance project. So those ones are in the process of final closeout of the documentation and paperwork, but for all intents and purposes, construction is complete on those. But we do have a few that have construction pending, which we're pretty excited about. The first one of those is Terminal Maintenance Phase 1. That's a project to address a number of different maintenance items within the terminal. We're still in negotiations with the contractor on that one, but expect to have a proposal from them that we can move forward with very soon. The next two are a bit closer to starting. The first one is the Parking Lot Rehabilitation Phase 1, which is primarily reconstruction of the Wiseman Aviation parking lot. And it also includes the installation of a fence around the terminal parking lot here at the airport terminal. That will be a footrail style fence that's going to replace the temporary chain link fence that's been around the lot for the past couple of years. The other project is our Airfield Maintenance Phase 2 project. This includes a few items that weren't able to be completed under last fall's previous airfield maintenance project, as well as restriping the curb in front of the terminal to hopefully make it a little bit more clear where people should be driving in a through lane versus parking for pickup and drop off or returning rental cars. So it's going to include the restriping of that, the installation of some signage, the removal of tire rubber from the runway and restriping a portion of the runway, as well as restriping the commercial aircraft parking ramp. Both of those projects are in the final phase of their procurement, and we expect those to start probably sometime in August. So coming up very quickly here. So hopefully within a few meetings, we'll have some cool photos to show you of those projects in progress. Now the design pending, we also have some news. I think I had shown these in the last meeting, these projects highlighted in red as tentative, as they may or may not have been part of CARES. I started them with a strike through this month because those are actually going to be removed from kind of our CARES project planning standpoint. That was the terminal hold room expansion and airline counter expansion. The reason those are being moved is because with the way that the FAA is currently interpreting the funding for CARES and what projects is eligible for, there are some questions as to whether those would be eligible for that CARES funding. We did apply for a grant, a competitive grant under the bipartisan infrastructure law for both of those projects. Fortunately, I don't believe we were awarded those grants in this grant cycle. However, that is a 5-year program, so we have a chance once a year for the next 4 years to get those in a position to hopefully move forward under that other program. So we do have a few other projects that still have design pending under CARES. One is the reconstruction or some improvements to our rental car and employee parking lot. The other is a replacement of the fire sprinkler system within the airport terminal with a more modern system. Both of those are in progress. We're in discussions with designers. Probably the terminal fire sprinkler replacement is going to move forward quicker than the other one. In addition to that, another project we have planned that is still in the earlier stages of our discussions with the contractors is a Westplex Hangar and Shade Repair Phase 2 project. We expect that one probably won't get done this fall, but hopefully that'll be one that we can start either over the winter or next spring, depending on weather availability. And so just as a reminder, those projects that we talked about here are coming out of that CARES Act budget, which is a coronavirus relief budget through the FAA. And on that pie chart of the 18 million plus or minus that we received as part of that grant, these are coming out of that $6.7 million in equipment and maintenance, primarily the maintenance part of that. Next slide, please. So I realized I created this graphic for a different meeting and decided I should include it in our presentation today because I think it illustrates maybe a little bit of a higher level view of projects out here at the airport. So we spent a lot of time in the last few months talking about CARES projects. However, that is just one of our funding sources for projects out here at the airport. So you can see the CARES grant projects shown with the red text in this. That's the Wiseman parking lot maintenance, airfield maintenance, and terminal maintenance and fire sprinkler replacement. Those are kind of the projects that we have under CARES now that are either about to be under construction or very close to being under construction. But we do have other projects shown in those purple and green texts that are funded either out of the airport fund, things like the paid parking system and the new economy parking lot and electric vehicle charging, and through other FAA grants. That's projects like the snow removal equipment building, the relocation of taxiway whiskey, and the improvement project for the drainage here at the commercial aircraft terminal. So at another time when we have a little bit of a less full agenda, I can go into a little bit more detail of the different funding sources for projects out here at the airport, what funding percentages are paid by other organizations such as the FAA or ADOT, and what the city is on the hook for, and how that kind of fits into our overall capital improvement program. But this is just a quick snapshot of the projects that we have that are in those final stages of procurement or under construction or soon to be under construction. And if anybody has any questions about CARES or these other projects, I'd be happy to answer them.
Brian, thank you for this visual of the current projects. This is very helpful to see all of the activity that's happening at the airport. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it is. It does cover a lot of our space out here when you see it on a map.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Gall? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much, sir. You are up next with the parking lot update.
Great, thank you, Chair Caldwell. Not quite as much to report on the parking lot this month. So work is nearing completion for the entire project, though we're still a few items away from being able to check that off and request our certificate of occupancy. Since we spoke last, the final landscaping work is complete. So I've included a few pictures here to show how that landscaping turned out. Picture on the lower right shows the landscaping between the parking lot and Pulliam Drive. And the picture on the left shows an interior view of the lot with the landscaping in the parking lot islands. Now, the items that are still remaining to be done before we can get that certificate of occupancy are the delivery of the last few light poles. Really, it's the light poles are up, it's the luminaires, the light fixtures on top that we're waiting on. And I believe we're just 2 short now. Before when we had spoken, we were 6 short, so they're slowly trickling their way in. Last I heard was we're hoping those 2 will be in within the next couple weeks. Lighting is one of the requirements that we have to have from the building safety team to make sure that it's a safe place for passengers and customers to park and walk. The other remaining items are the medallions that go within the sidewalk that are between the parking lot and the terminal, and the fence that goes along that sidewalk as well. Both of those are part of that Coconino scroll artwork that has been done in conjunction with city beautification staff. I believe the sidewalk medallions, they're waiting for a representative of the artist to be on site so they can be sure they're placed properly. But that hopefully will happen within the next couple of weeks. And the sidewalk fence, artistic fence, is still under production. So they're still working on making the panels that are going to that fence. The sidewalk medallions are especially important because until they're placed, there's large holes in the sidewalk that make it a little bit unsafe for folks to walk through there. So as of now, that sidewalk still has closure barricades up on either end of it. But we're hoping that those items will be coming in soon. And once they do, we'll be requesting that certificate of occupancy to see when we can get that lot open for passengers. Next slide, please.
Before we move to the next slide, I believe that Barney has his hands up or his hand up.
Yes, Missy, if you could roll back to that last slide real quick for me. I want to point out something in this lower left photograph. Oftentimes people think that the city sections and divisions are able to do whatever we want within city rules and regulations, but this is a perfect example of showing we have to follow the same rules as the rest of the city. You'll see that long sidewalk going through the parking lot, through the landscaping. This was a safety rule that was put in several years back by the support of council and the planning and zoning division. And when the parking lot come in, we, myself primarily, and some of my staff were concerned about the unlevelness between a cement and an asphalt, because you're going to have shrinkage and at different rates from the climate changes. And we wanted to just do a dye job across there for that. But because it's very specific in the rules, we had to follow the same thing and put that sidewalk in. It looks great now, and I hope that I'm wrong in the long run, but I just want to point out that city sections and city divisions must follow the same rules and regulations as the public.
Thank you, Barney.
Great point. Thanks for bringing that up and pointing that out, Barney. So the picture on the lower left really goes with the parking lot again. I just wanted to kind of show off that we did get our new overlays done on our existing signs around Pulliam Drive. So now they are pointing to the economy parking lot. So directional signage is in place. Whenever we can get that lot open and the paid parking system in, we're going to be set up well for that. In addition to that, the electric vehicle charging stations are very close to completion. If you remember last time we spoke, there were some electrical components, some of the transformers and switches that are required for that system that had a pretty long lead time. Fortunately, some of those that we expected to take the longest came in early unexpectedly. So with that, the last items that are to be completed are the installation of a concrete pad for a new transformer and the installation of the transformer itself. And then the connecting the system to the main overall electrical grid by APS, and then the programming of the charging stations themselves. We don't have an exact timeline for that. Some of those parts, especially that transformer, are still kind of out there on that wait list. But that was one of the items that we didn't think was going to take quite as long. So hopefully sooner than later, we'll see those electric vehicle charging stations available for use. Additionally, I mentioned the paid parking system. I just wanted to bring up briefly that we were in discussions with the vendor for the installation of purchase and installation of the paid parking equipment itself. However, after looking at the contracting mechanisms that we had in place to direct select that vendor, we found that we actually think it's going to be better for the city and the airport if we go out for a request for proposals. So we've kind of reset on that a little bit and are putting together a request for proposals from various vendors for the paid parking system. So we don't have one under contract at this time, but it's something we're still working through, and we'll keep everybody updated when we expect that system to be installed. And if anybody has any questions or comments about the parking lot, we'd be happy to answer them.
All right. Thank you very much, Brian, for your reports, and the visuals are always appreciated. Thank you. All right, moving on then to item number 3, airline update, and that is Barney Helmig.
I feel like I'm being bookended a little bit with my career here. I came in 1 week before we lost, as many of you may remember, Horizon Airlines flying to Los Angeles. And unfortunately, last week, I did receive a call from United Airlines corporate announcing that they're going to suspend operations of the Denver Flagstaff route effective October 30th. They did say that this is a suspension. They will review it in approximately 6 months. We are not the only market. As Orville mentioned before, I noticed this entire year, every quarter, there have been news of different routes, and including in this route, Sonoma Airport, Charles M. Schultz, and their director's a good friend of mine. They got news at the same time we did that their route's going to be suspended. Texarkana in the American side, Dubuque, Iowa, Bismarck, North Dakota to Chicago, Charlottesville, Virginia, Pasco, Washington, Redmond, Oregon. You're seeing it in mostly regional connectors to hubs for a couple different reasons. The pilot shortage that I've been talking about for several years is been sped up by the COVID. And also you're seeing, for example, the first quarter of this year, United reported a $1.4 billion adjusted net loss. They are late to the game, but at least United and American are trying to do some things with this. They officially opened the United Aviate Academy with the goal of training 5,000 new pilots by 2030. United is not the only U.S. major to own a flight training school. And historic inaugural pilot class is 80% women and of color. They are doing this training class in Goodyear, Arizona. American has another class. I apologize, I was unable to find where that is, whether it's in Florida or Texas, but you are seeing them start this up. But it's been an ongoing downhill slide for about 7 years. So pilots retiring and not being replaced by the airlines. But what they do is they have a progression area of where a pilot will come in, get their training. When they go to the airline, they work in the regional routes, get additional time. They have to have a minimum of 1,500 hours under their belt to even fly for the regionals. As soon as they get to a certain level and openings come up, then they'll go back for training in the larger aircraft, specifically going into the A319 series and the 737 Boeing series. So right now, the airlines are seeing the retirement in the top end, and they're robbing the lower end. So that's why we're seeing so many regional markets being suspended or just outright cut. Orville was right. We were seeing a 90% load factor. And I did argue that factor to no avail. Was told that there are several routes, such as us and my friend up in Sonoma, that we're seeing high load factors, but right now they just don't have crews to man them, and they're going to the more profitable routes, the mainline routes. But I will also point out that not just the regionals, markets such as San Diego to LAX were being reduced. Newark, New Jersey, which is a large hub for United, announced that 40 routes were going to be suspended in that market. It is a nationwide and a worldwide shortage of pilots, and it's going to take a few years to recover from this drop. We will continue to talk to United and see if they can find something to get us back online. In the meantime, Claire and I are scheduled to go to Huntsville, Alabama in November at one of the airline recruiting conferences. We will be talking to other carriers to see if there's any help there, but I'm not going to paint a fancy picture and say we're going to get a new airline or United's going to come back right away. I'm going to be realistic that we're seeing a really, really tough time in the industry right now and in our economy. So I do not anticipate something changing rather quickly. It took us 8 years to get United in the door, but we will do everything we can within our powers and try to get something back in or get United back. I do want to say thank you to the commission members. Many of you were involved with this recruitment process, and I want to thank you to the community. We embraced United, and putting that many people on a flight for a new regional route showed that. Denver is a popular market for us, but I'll open it up for any questions, concerns about this topic or what we are going to do about this.
Go ahead, Orville.
Yeah, I was thinking about when I talked, and I was pretty Debbie Downer, and I just wanted to make it really clear that what, from our perspective and what we're hearing, and by the way, some of the United employees are being taken by American, and some of them expressed an interest in working for us, and we're going to sit down and talk to them. But I just want to make it 110% clear that, on this end of the ramp, we applaud the city and everything they did to accommodate and bring these extra flights in. And I did, if I came across like maybe I thought it was somewhat because of local politics or whatever. I don't. I mean, honestly, you got to applaud everything that went on. It was a little bit reactive. I mean, but the parking lots, I mean, you really couldn't ask more of our airport in terms to accommodate what was going on. And I just wanted to make that clear and thank Barney and the rest of the staff for, bringing that to fruition.
Thank you for that, Orville. I know that the city of Flagstaff worked very hard to solidify that deal. And it's very sad that, we're in this state that, unfortunately, regional airports are feeling the hit when we talk about aviation. Barney, with the pilot shortage, that's not something that can be fixed overnight. I know that they would revisit the idea of reinstating in 6 months, but really, what can we do at this point?
Well, I'm going to introduce Claire here. For those of you who have not met Claire, she is working on a campaign to do a letter writing to United. So I'm going to let her speak for a minute about that.
Thank you, Barney, and thank you, Chair. So what I will share in the chat is a document letter of support that we are asking that you, if you feel appropriate, or if you know any business owners or someone that would be impacted or would like to be vocal about United leaving, that they submit the letter. It's a template, but we certainly encourage you to personalize it, do as you wish, and add it on your letterhead. And then if you do submit a letter, certainly copy Barney and myself so we can track how many letters are submitted to United. So I'll go ahead and put that attachment in the chat file. There's really no timeline of when we want these. It doesn't need to be immediately. We certainly would like to get them in a timely fashion so we're at the top of United's mind. But if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to me directly. I see that Cal has their hand up. One moment. We have been working. We're going to send one on behalf of the city. We're going to be working with Gore, NAU, the Chamber, the county, Econa, and a few other businesses to provide them the letter as well. But that's really, we just want to make it known that we are disheartened and that there is that need for service and continued service.
Cal, Commissioner McCoy?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to thank you for the information, Claire and Barney. That was the question I was getting ready to ask, and you answered it. Thanks.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you, Claire. And for some reason, my chat feature is not showing up here. So if someone could follow up and maybe email that the letter to commission members.
Yes,
or
we'll do that as well.
To email the link to commission members, that would be great. Wonderful. All right. Are there any other questions from commissioners on this subject? It's very sad news, and as always, when the city has worked this hard to bring such a resource to the city, and then and really it's beyond our control at this point, and I think that's that extra layer of sadness. I think that letting the airline know that this is how we feel about it, and we're certainly open to future discussions. I think that is a good way to go at this point, because again, there are issues that are truly outside of our control. So, and I also want to thank Barney and the entire airport staff for just all of their hard work and dedication, and then also the efforts to mitigate this at this point is very commendable. So thank you very much. Councilwoman Salas, you have your hand up, and then we'll go to Commissioner Steiner.
Yeah, while we're on this topic, and of course, council is on break, and I could definitely bring it up in August, on August 24, when council resumes regular session, it's for council to adopt a resolution along the lines of, urging urging United to consider the suspension. Perhaps I can work with staff to come up with that draft resolution. It will be impactful if the airport commission will also urges council to adopt a resolution to that intent. So anyway, so I'm just thinking out loud here. I think right now, understanding the reasons why United is suspending the Flagstaff Denver route, despite the fact that it's a successful route and with employments at over 90%. But I think having the public voice and also the city leadership voice will make hopefully a huge impact as United evaluates the Flagstaff Denver route. So just thinking out loud. So Barney, I'll be in touch with you offline along with Heidi. See the possibility of a council resolution about this matter, and of course this won't happen until like last week of August or the 24th or even first week of September. So well, thank you. Oh, on a personal note, my son actually, who used to serve the Army as an aviation mechanic, is starting flight school at the end of August in Denver at Ames Community College. So hopefully, and his goal is to be a commercial pilot once he gets his training, and of course, how many hours? 1,500 hours? Yes. Getting there, probably I don't know how many years will take him that, but that's his goal.
That's wonderful. Here.
And how many dollars out of mom's pocket too?
Right? Yes. Yes. Thank you,
Well,
Council.
there's the GI Bill.
There's that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Commissioner Steiner.
Yeah, let's see. And to Regina, congratulations on her nephew's goal. I forgot son or nephew. I wasn't sure, but that's a great goal. And 1,500 hours is a lot of hours. I think that came from a crash in New Jersey or something that I recall regarding under-trained pilots. But anyway, I'm hoping the FAA will actually do something to reduce that 1,500 hour requirement, because it's really slowing a lot of introduction to new pilots. I would guess, I would assume. Anyway, my question is, with this reduction in service from United, there still must be a demand. Do you know how the airlines are going to pick up this demand? I mean, are there going to be more buses or more people traveling to Phoenix to make their connections by car or bus or something? I'm just wondering what what's going to happen going forward to meet some of the demand. Does anyone have a thought on that?
I will say that I got on the horn and called my main contact in Dallas-Fort Worth with American to ask if they're going to make any changes this time, and they said no. So we still do have the Dallas and Phoenix routes for American. Nobody is planning on doing any busing at this time. but we are seeing pushes to get people to go drive to Phoenix and fly. I'm also watching our neighbor city down the road in Prescott, because they're being handled primarily by SkyWest Airlines flying under the United banner, and SkyWest is running out of pilots quickly too. So it may trickle further before it stops, but no, there's no plans on doing anything for getting people to Phoenix. But we do see our current carriers saying they're going to stay with us the way they are.
Yeah, thanks, Barney.
All right, thank you. Orville, you have your hand up. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Barney, you brought up Prescott. Isn't all that handled under a Essential Air Service contract?
It is, but recently SkyWest put in an application to pull out of, I believe it's 8 markets that they're doing EAS on, and they've also parked quite a few of their aircraft. In the case of SkyWest, they own a lot of their fleet and do what they call a prorate program, where they are actually the primary contractor. But they're running out of pilots just as quickly as anybody else. I know my primary contact with SkyWest recently left them just for the simple fact that he wasn't sure about how their industry is going to hold up. And they're one of the strongest regional carriers out there, them in Republic.
So is United going to leave their equipment here? Or, I mean, how's that all going to work? Are you going to take down the sign at the terminal, or go inside? I mean, I'm just thinking of optics here over the next 6 months.
Well, as long as they're still here, we won't do anything, but effective the 30th, we are looking at covering signage. They have not made a decision on equipment. I will be, I'm kind of looking at it as 2 ways. One, if they leave the equipment, we're going to have to find a place to park it. So if we do get another carrier in here, that we can just move them into those offices. But it may be a sign that they are seriously considering coming back. If they pull the equipment out, then I'm concerned. Is it a sign that they're not coming back? And I try not to read too much into it, but you know the industry as well as I do. Equipment sitting around that can be used somewhere else doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. I just know they're going to ask us to fork a lot of it on the truck. So that was another reason I asked. But okay. Well, interesting times. Gallup, as we leave Gallup, they actually got a $2.5 million grant from the state of New Mexico, and they're getting air service to Phoenix for 2 years, but it's in a King Air. So I don't know. Weird times.
Absolutely. Very, very weird times. Any other questions for Barney from the commissioners? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much, Barney. And again, thank you to your team and your staff for working hard to get the business and get the service, and now mitigating and working towards mitigating this issue. And hopefully over the next year, we'll have positive results. All right. Going on to item number 4, quorum, and that's Ms. Ciela Sanner.
All right, hopefully this should be a quick little section. Due to last month of not being able to have our meeting, we figured it would be best to just go over what quorum is and why it's important. So just as a reminder to all of our commission members, that quorum is the number of members that are needed to be in attendance in order for our meeting to be held. This includes all of our vacancies. It would be a majority of our commission members. Since we consist of 7 members, the requirement would be 4 in attendance. And if we don't have quorum, we cannot actually hold the meeting per Arizona's open meeting law. So it's really important to have everybody respond if they'll be able to attend, and if you respond and that changes, to also let us know. I usually get a response maybe from 2 or 3 commission members when I send out my week before reminder. That includes the upcoming agenda as well as the previous month's minutes for review. At the bottom, I do ask that everybody respond to me and letting me know if they are planning on attend. And so I would just reiterate, if people can kind of get into the habit of responding, that would be really helpful. I know at the beginning of this meeting, we had more of our members online. It looks like a couple have left throughout the meeting. So I'll try to reiterate this in a next email for anybody who misses this portion. If you do have any questions on the rules about commission meetings and all of that, there is more information on the Flagstaff webpage for boards and commissions. Otherwise, any questions from anyone?
All right, I don't hear any questions, but thank you very much, Ms. Yella. We will make sure that we will respond and give you our RSVP when we do receive that email reminder a week prior to the scheduled meeting. So thank you for that. All right, that takes care of item number 5, or item number 6, and item number 7 is adjournment of the regular meeting. Our next meeting will be August 11th. And do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion we adjourn the meeting, Commissioner Steiner.
Thank you, sir. Do I hear a second?
Second, Commissioner McCloy.
Thank you. All in favor, please unmute and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all. We will talk to you, see you next month.